realize that you were going to be exceptional? If you go back to Pennsylvania or Indiana or Dallas, at what point did you kind of have a feeling that things were going to happen?
When I was about 12 years old. And I remember asking my dad to, I wanted new basketball shoes because I was a basketball junkie back then. He's like, well, your shoes work. If you want a new pair of tennis shoes, you have to go out there and get a job. And I'm like, Dad, I'm 12 years old, and it just so happens he was playing poker with his buddies, and one of his buddies was like, well, I got a job for you. I've got these garbage bags that we distribute. You can sell them door to door. I'm like, okay. And it was when I was selling them and realizing that I liked to sell and that I could sell and that I recognized that selling was about providing a service and creating value for people, that I knew that I would, literally back then, I knew that I could always succeed. I mean, I remember I was 16, I think, when I started a stamp company and started going to stamp shows and trade shows and just working a little bit harder than other people and trading up from one stamp to the next. I remember one time I started with a quarter and bought a stamp and left with $50, thinking, hey, if I could do this, I could do anything. And it's not that everything worked. I failed a lot, but I never ever felt like I wouldn't be able to work hard enough to succeed.
Well, you have an extreme passion for the Mavs. Even the casual viewer can see how passionate you are. Do you think that that passion transcends into the way you approach business?
Yeah, I think it's the other way around. I think it was the passion I've always had for business and being an entrepreneur that transfers into the Mavs. I've always been passionate. Some people thought, you know, it's more OCD than anything else, which I think is a great trait for an entrepreneur. When I mentioned the stamp business, I would stay up till 3, 4 in the morning, even though I had to get up and go to school, and read Lynn's Stamp News and Scott's Stamp Journals and have them all memorized and use that to give myself an edge. Even when I was in college, I'd be in the library reading business books and just looking for business biographies and just reading all I could about business. When I had Micro Solutions and, you know, I started with no money, you know, I'd pull all-nighters in front of borrowed computers, teaching myself software and how to program. It's just, I've always just really enjoyed just the competition of business. I think, you know, in the sports business, I'll talk to our players and it'll be like, well, you guys compete for 48 minutes and you practice a couple hours and you work on your game independently a couple hours. But the ultimate sport is business because you have to compete with everybody. And you have to do it 24/7 by 365 days a year forever. And there's always somebody out there trying to kick your butt. There's always somebody who looks at your business and says, I can do that better. I have a better idea. And you have to compete with that person. And all the while, you have to make your customers happy, your employees happy. It's the competitive side of me that, in any entrepreneur, that I think that has to drive you. And I think that carries over into the Mavericks. I want to win and I want to compete.
Well, when you started Micro Solutions, it was a small company.
Yep.
What advice would you give small business owners?
Love what you do. I think too many people think they have to find the one idea. And there's nothing wrong with failing. You know, I've told a lot of people, it doesn't matter how many times you fail. If you get it right, you're an overnight success. All you got to do is get it right one time, and you're that overnight success. You know, I sold powder milk, and that was a disaster. I had my senior year project in Indiana was opening up a bar that got closed because of a wet T-shirt contest with a 16-year-old. That was a disaster, but that was good because it kept me out of the bar business. I got fired from my first job in the software business because I wanted to close the deal instead of going out and closing a sale. I mean, instead of coming in and sweeping the floor, you know, and so it didn't matter how many times I failed. I just kept on going and going and going. And entrepreneurs need to realize that sometimes it's not the idea, you know, it's not who you know, it's not how much money you have access to. It's really finding something that you really love to do. I had no idea I loved computers and technology, none. I mean, I took one class in Indiana in computers and I cheated to get through it. It was Fortran, and Then I bought a little PC, a 99 4A from Texas Instruments for $99. Started teaching myself the program and found, 4 hours later, 5 hours later, I would look up and I'd been working this entire time and I loved it. And so that was the difference. When I finally, I failed a lot of times and I didn't know where I'd find my success. And then all of a sudden I started playing with PCs and technology and it just clicked.
I've often in what order of importance would you put when you look at technical understanding, instinct, creativity, or believing that you can do something? What is most important?
I think the most important is knowing your strengths and weaknesses and knowing what you enjoy doing. If you look at it as a job, you've already lost. It's not going to be your passion, and you're going to count the hours. If you look at it as something you love to do, and then you know what your strengths are, then you can leverage those strengths in your business and in helping others. And once you recognize your weaknesses, then you can work with people that complement you. I mean, every one of my businesses, I've had a partner who's very anal. Martin Woodall, Todd Wagner. I mean, incredibly anal people, perfectionists, because I'm a slob. I'm a big picture, think about what's around the corner, how's technology going to change things, how can I change, this industry, and, making sure that there's somebody there to dot the I's, cross the T's, and keep me in the baselines. And, recognizing my weaknesses is just as important as recognizing my strengths and my core competencies and having a passion to do them.